Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, a weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. Nothing fancy to say here at the start. I got my tier done in one day, and now I'm ready to do PFs on my alt and get my weekly clears and coast, getting the rest of my Dawn Trail objectives done and keeping up on the news as we normally do between the patch season. I'm sure a lot of people are looking forward to the stuff we'll be getting in 7.1 and onward, but that's still quite a ways away. So don't forget to stay tuned for all relevant information as it comes out. We should be getting an announcement about a live letter soon. It's about that time, so just kind of hoping that's the case. But anyway, I'm just going to rattle through the Q&A. I just got back from the gym and I haven't showered yet, so I would like to do this and then render while I'm in the shower. I'm just trying to multitask. Anyway, thank you to the sponsors over on Patreon for supporting. Nobody has to support. Everyone chooses to. All my content is available for free here on YouTube, but I appreciate all of y'all who tune in, ask questions in the comment section below, and just generally enjoy the content. So thanks to everyone supporting. With that, let's get on to the questions. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hi, Mr. Happy. Hi. I was as surprised as you are that my S-Rank early poll question was somewhat echoed by another commenter. I mean, a lot of people are doing hunts at the start of the expansion right now. I want to ask you a semi-related question to Criterion from last week. Something a little more unpointed. What Realm Reborn 1.0 areas would you like to see revisited or explored anew? We've been to almost all of the 1.0 areas, or they've been repurposed in some way. Sil D would have been at the top of that list. Other than that, we've at least somewhat visited most of, like, Gelmora. I'd like to learn more about that, but we have Palace of the Dead. While I do think we don't particularly get enough about Gelmora through Palace of the Dead, and I feel like there's got to always be more to learn about the War of the Magi, Amdapor, Nim. Like, we've learned a lot. We do have a lot of information. But, I mean, those are really kind of the go-tos for Realm Reborn 1.0, like going back in those eras. Because 1.0 mostly just changed the face of the map, so it's less about what did we visit or did we not visit from 1.0. It's really more like, how have certain areas changed when we came over to 2.0? Aloha, why'd you start yowling as soon as I started recording? Aloha. So yeah, I mean, I can't really think of anything more specific. One thing I don't like about having long hair, dude, I cannot contain it. I need to get like an actual hairband and just like that. Hashtag Mondays. I can already see there's no hello here. What do you think about spinning mechanics? The Zodiac one and the one of the DT expert dungeon with the teacups really make me want to puke. I'm sure I'm not the only one. I mean, looking at a spinning object doesn't make me want to vomit. If I was spinning my camera the whole time, it would. But for any mechanic like that, you sit your camera still and just follow with your eyes. That way you don't get dizzy. So I don't have any opinion because I don't think there's anything wrong with them. Howdy, hashtag Mr. Happy from this Monday. Hello. I have two questions. First, I was thinking about substats the other day and wondered about substats unique to each role. Tenacity for tanks and piety for healers. My question is, what do you think would happen if direct hit became a substat only for DPS? I've been saying they should do this for ages. And if anything, if they want to tie direct hit to tenacity and piety to make people have to consider a little bit, like not as much as direct hit directly, but I would wonder what the actual power trough would look like, because, you know, direct hit is a really valuable stat for tanks. Excuse me, tanks and healers. I shouldn't have eaten right before this. I'm like hiccuping and I'm like my mouth is salivating and stuff. Oh, either way, yeah, that's honestly, I've been saying they should do that for a while now. And second, how do you feel about the tilt on the mounts? I love it. I love the tilt. I just get this like mild dopamine hit whenever I'm on a mountain. I see it tilt. I can't explain it other than that. Hello, hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hello. What would you think about the making skill? So last week we had the S rank theme, and this week we have substats as the theme. All right. What do you think about them making skill speed melts far more potent and removing them from gear entirely, as well as condensing it into a universal stat? Well, I've been saying they should just do haste for a while. You got to remember though, and I don't know how paladins would actually feel about this, but haste being a universal stat has implications on jobs like paladin, where they have pieces of their rotation that do not benefit from skill speed and pieces that do. If it was universal, I wonder what the tiers would look like for them, or if they would just want to stay at 2.5 anyway. Like, I guess I don't know enough about the actual timing of the job skills and like how important being at certain point of the rotation is for, I guess, certain parts of paladin. But you do have to consider that. Honestly, I actually want to know what the devs think. More than anything, like, not even answering the question directly. I know I'm literally skirting it entirely. I want to hear what the devs think about skill speed and spell speed. I genuinely want to hear it, because they have to know how like knife's edge the stats are. You can't just be faster for no reason on like 99% of situations or builds or jobs. Like you just can't. Like some jobs you kind of can, and some jobs you have different breakpoints for comfort, and that's fine. But like it's still such a finicky stat that the most thing I was most grateful about from this tier was my gear not having skill speed on it. Like the fact that not having it is the ideal thing, which is why your suggestion makes sense. Like that they gotta know that's not good for design. Like whenever there's stats that people are just praying they don't get, that's not good, and they need to address that, or at least speak up about it so we know that they're kind of understanding us on that one. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hey there, Haps. Hi. I know I'm writing this because the tier is actually out, but you're going to be reading this after the fact, so I hope it treated you well. Now for my question. Hello, by the way. Has there been any strategy for any mechanic this tier you really hope PF doesn't adopt? Something like tank damage down some P1S or Happy Brambles? So I think M3S changing the relative north during, I think it's called Final Fuse Down. That is ridiculously silly to me. So essentially, there is a part of the arena that has 3 bombs with long wicks, so they're going to explode later. And then on the far side is 1 bomb that has a long wick. And then there are 4 short wick bombs kind of making like a L pattern, like a reverse L or a normal L pattern, depending on the layout. And for some reason, there are, how do I put this? Some groups for the first week were doing the lone long wick was the new relative north. And then after, I think, the updated PF strats, now they're using the part with the 3 long wicks as the new relative north. Why? What is the point of changing the relative north? Honestly, the only reason I can even begin to fathom is that they want the cardinal people to be able to say, go left, go right. Or maybe only the people who are on cardinals go left and go right, which would be the melees and the tanks. Like, bro, just look to your left. If there's a short wick and you're a long wick, that's where you're going. If there's a long wick and you're a short wick, that's where you're going later. Like, I don't... It's no more complicated than that. And if you're worried about the people with the cardinals, no matter what, everyone is between one of 2 markers. Like, you don't need a relative north. You just need to be like, well, I'm either D or B, or I'm either A or C, or I'm northwest or southwest. Like, you can literally only be, depending on the role you're playing, one of the 2 positions. Changing the relative north does nothing. So that's one of those, it feels like the PF is trying to do one extra step of communication or one extra step of thinking for no reason. And that is the number one thing the PF needs to eliminate, is extra steps of thinking. It's why I'm not a huge fan of True North when it comes to one of the particular leaping quadruple crossings, the one where the boss is looking in the middle and then either jumps left or right, which is technically north or south. And you have to memorize the boss is looking in a direction and is jumping right. You need to know that for later. That's relevant. So you want to orient to the boss so you know that. But you also have to orient north to make sure that you're doing the mechanic correctly. It's just, that's so strange to take that extra step to think. I think it makes more sense when you actually do it with the clones, which is, I think, really the reason people do it, is the clone that comes right after that. But there are just some places where the PF seems to create extra work for themselves for no gain and no benefit and no good reason. But the M3S one, that one, it's really minor. It wouldn't even change the strat. I just don't like the idea of communicating that you're changing your relative north. It's just that one extra communication or one extra thought process that doesn't need to exist. Hashtag, oh my goodness, there's so much text here. Hashtag Happy Monday, Mr. Happy. Hi, hello, hola, bonjour, and guten tag. See, now you made up for all the other ones that the people missed. Hello. I've mentioned many of the times I felt Alliance Rage have item level sinking, and imagine, didn't I answer a question like this last week? I have a vague memory of somebody asking about item level syncing Alliance raids, or like trying to force people to do like mechanics in Alliance raids. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not great at always remembering my answers, but I think I said something along the lines of, if you made Crystal Tower take longer, people would just leave. Like, the main reason why a lot of people do like Crystal Tower is because they just want to obliterate it. You know what I mean? Like, they're like, oh, great, I got the easiest one. They don't really care whether or not the mechanics are fun or they get to do the whole fight. That's why that entire Alliance raid was the way that it was. And I think even though some people definitely want to see mechanics, I don't think they want every alliance raid to be longer necessarily. So I think that while it's well-intentioned to want alliance raids to be somewhat preserved, and I think within the expansion, like the fact that a Goliath had scales being skippable in the same expansion, I think is ridiculous. And, we're kind of running into that issue with M4S right now amongst the hardcore raiders, but you get what I mean. But like if one's is old, they've very much shown they don't care. Like we've been asking for them to increase the HP. Like we just had the S rank talk last week about the invuln timer. But we've been asking them to make, just give old S ranks more health. So that way, if like there's like a griefer, they can't just solo it on their own and it's like super easy. And they're just like, that's old content. We don't really see the point. And that's here. So how I feel is kind of irrelevant. And how I feel is that while some people like me would be okay with it and like you would be okay with it, I think the majority of people just want to get in and out of their roulettes. And that's really going to be the only, that's really going to be the most important. I can't say the only thing, but it's probably the most important thing amongst the majority of people doing roulettes. I think it was, why not put content like Delubrum in the Alliance? They can't. It's literally not attached to the Duty Finder in any way. So they can't do it. And that's because they have the individual mechanics. It's literally not built even like alongside this. Other than entering like instance servers, it has no connecting threads. Now, could they redo it? Sure. But that comes with the issue, like you mentioned, of essences and whatnot. How do they flag to the Alliance roulette that someone suddenly entered something with an entirely different rule set? They can't. Like, not with the way it's built. And honestly, I don't see them ever remedying that. Delubrum also, I mean, they've already rebuilt it so that it automatically queues with whoever you have and it scales and then they have to undo. It's a lot of work that I bet they think isn't worth it. I think it's worth just making a version that is 24-man queuable. But that's me. That's not them. And I don't see them doing it. I had a question above this just asking when I was finally going to answer MSQ questions. I don't know. Like just 1 week, I'll just decide. Yeah, screw it. It doesn't matter. That's pretty much it. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. No hello again. Yo, what is going on with people? Be wildin' today. Surprised to hear you were a Tekken enjoyer. Well, let me rephrase. I'm not a Tekken enjoyer. I enjoy watching fighting games. I don't really play them. Like the few times I played fighting games. So I had a friend growing up. Still technically a friend now, and if he hears this, sorry, but I think he knows that this was the case. He used to tell us how good he was at like Street Fighter 4, for example, and Marvel vs. Capcom 3. And none of us were really fighting game players, so we'd play him and he'd win. And so I just made it a goal to get good enough at those games to beat him, and that was it. So like, to be fair, with Street Fighter 4, I did pick Balrog. Which is, I'm not going to lie, I felt kind of dirty doing that. Because he was like a Ryu and Ken player. And Balrog's reach, he couldn't get away from me. And then when I played Marvel vs. Capcom 3, it was Dante, Spencer, what's his name, Sentinel. I got okay at Zero. But like, I just started getting decent at characters to the point where I knew I could win. And that was it. It was not like a real, like, I'm a fighting game player kind of play. You know what I mean? So with Tekken, I used to buy it and I would just play as like, God, who did I even play? Hold on. I'm going to look real quick because I want to make sure I don't get this wrong and make it sound like I've never played Tekken before. Because Tekken growing up was like you don't really play fighters, but you rent them for whatever reason, if that makes sense. I used to just play King all the time. Yeah, that's who I used to play. But I haven't played Tekken since like 4 or something like that. I just think Tekken is really entertaining to watch at EVO. And I didn't feel that way until Tekken 7 and now Tekken 8. They've just like really done a good job of just making it. You know what it is? Tekken is the fighting game. You don't feel like you need to know fight. And I think that kind of ties back to like how I just said how like Tekken was the fighting game you rented when you didn't really play fighting games. Mortal Kombat was another one of those. Where you don't have to be like a technical god at like fighting games to even casually watch and enjoy Tekken. You just have to understand the characters are close enough to hit each other or not. And then somebody just juggles somebody into a wall or like punishes them off the ground or something like that. And I don't know, it's just really easy to understand. It's not like Marvel vs. Capcom 3 where you have like the Magneto infinite juggles and, you know, trying to watch somebody go for the zero tech or an 8 billion point combo on Dante. Like you look at that and you go, how? In Tekken, you're just like, you don't even care. It just makes sense what you're looking at. So I wouldn't say I main anyone in Tekken, but there's just so many qualities that are viewer friendly that it's a genuine joy whenever I can watch it at any of the Tekken Cup events or the Capcom Cup or Evo itself. Howdy, hello, howdy, and salutations. Hashtag. I like how we've just started moving the hashtag a little bit further in. I still see it. It's been moved in. Recently been leveling Dancer. Noticed the coin flip proc skills are still separate buttons, despite it feeling like it would be perfect for the button transitions that were expanded in Dawn Trail. The coin flip even extends to allowing for the second skill in the AoE rotation when procced by single target attacks. Do you sometimes involuntarily Dancer mains have any insight as to why? If I had to take a quick stab at it, I would assume it's because you can stack up to 2 of them. I guess that doesn't really come up as an excuse because they could still do it. Okay, so you're probably not going to like the answer, but the more realistic one is that it probably is just a quota for skills. A lot of people have been wondering why some skills, even on Viper and Picto, are combined and others aren't combined, or even some on Viper and Picto aren't combined. I think they have kind of like an internal quota of how many buttons they want a job to have, and they want to stick to it. Because you're right, the logic dictates that they don't need to be extra buttons, and there's no situation where you have a proc on a skill and you want to press the same skill that could give you a proc again. That situation isn't there, and so under that logic, it makes sense to do. I think it's a button quota, in all honesty. Holy moly, text. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hello, bonjour, privé, dobraya utra. Man, I sure hope all of those were hellos and you didn't just make me say something really bad. And everything else that qualifies as a hello in whatever language pops up to the viewers. Hi. I've had the chance to watch your Echoes of Vanadil video of what you believe might be the case of what we can expect from the raid. While I agree simply making Vanadil a shard is problematic, well, less so now. Not to mention, again, the description on the page does say that, or does imply potentially that it's, quote, another realm. We have methods, but either way, we'll see. And keep in mind, there's a difference between Vanadil being a shard and Final Fantasy XI being a shard. And I want to establish that. Vanadil can be the name of a location in a shard that shares a lot of characteristics with Final Fantasy XI. Similar to how Ivalice exists over in Authard, but isn't Final Fantasy XII. You know what I mean? Vanadil can 100% be a shard. It just isn't actually Final Fantasy, like tying the two games together like inextricably. People like to point to Iroha being in Final Fantasy XIV. As a reminder, collaboration events, especially those ones that are just like the 1 hour quest lines, like the 16 event, the 15 event, the 13 event, those are considered non-canon to Final Fantasy XIV. Meaning, Iroha's not actually in Final Fantasy XI. I'm sorry, not actually in Final Fantasy XIV. Now, could they change their mind about that and make it so that happening is relevant? Absolutely, and then this would be wrong, and I accept that. But as of right now, Koji has said that they deliberately just consider them non-canon for the sake of not trying to actually have to explain the lore between the two worlds or like tie them together in any meaningful lore consistent way. So worth saying that. You and many others also mentioned how Echo has a very different meaning in regards to 14 past events. It would seem the logical conclusion is to see a version of Vanadil which existed. Yeah, I think I said this in the video too, where I thought Vanadil... So another thing is that the term Echo also has a very important meaning in Final Fantasy XI. The Walk of Echoes was essentially... It was a place where all of the different versions of Vanadil... It was an interdimensional rift between them that was created by Atomos. And so it's essentially a conflux of dimensions. So could they also play on that? Absolutely. And I've seen some people go down that route as well. So there's a whole lot. And I'll probably be making more Final Fantasy XI-esque stuff just to get people caught up as we get more information, which should be coming from the next several live letters. So hopefully soon. There were just 2 quick questions here. I'll just include them because I was going to scroll past them. Do Pictomancers not make any mistakes? You just make happy accidents? I've heard that one before. That was the whole question, but I saw the hashtag there, and I was like, I'll skip that one and just bring it up, but never mind. But then I saw the one after, and it was someone asking about the Hempen Camise being unrace locked. I am glam illiterate. I couldn't tell you. I just straight up couldn't tell you. So I'm useless for both these questions. The first one is a joke I've already heard 1,000 times before, and the second one I'm too uneducated to know the answer for. Hey there, hashtag Mr. Haps on Moon Days. Moon Days. Bringing 2 to the second power, 4 hellos, and Memento with me, just in case. Hello. I've got a few ideas and questions for you. 1, what if they could add a roulette that would allow you to enter as an alliance one of the currently available world fates? No. It doesn't make any sense. The systems are inextricably, like, separate. There's no way to tie them together. So no, that's just not going to happen. 2, on a note of logging, it requires parsing in order to do the first stage, which can in fact grab your current job and item level. So only if it allowed you to manually plug it in. Because what logs does, and I think I explained this last week, is for your character information, all it is doing is reading the lodestone. And the lodestone only reads, I think it's whatever job you logged off on, and it doesn't even always update super quickly. You could give players the ability through another thing to manually input it and then send it. But quite frankly, I don't want to encourage any more use than there already is because I think it's fucking stupid. So I'm not going to be in favor of that. Thank you very much. 3, what if S ranks, when it's pulled, it prompts all people in the zone in that instance to teleport? No. Because what if you have casual people? Like, I understand it's a prompt, but there's no instant. There's no duty circle around it. And they're not going to add a duty circle to it because that's silly. It's immersion breaking more than anything. So they're not going to do that, and it wouldn't work otherwise. They could develop it to do it, but they're not going to for something like that. 4, I was wondering, in your opinion, I'm not a fan of how easy it seemed to do supposed high-end content. All it gets cleared in a day or 2. Question, have you cleared it? Because if not, it's irrelevant what you think. I'll just say it. If you're not the one clearing, then what you feel about that is completely irrelevant. That's it. That's just the matter of fact. Who cares how long it takes hardcore WoW groups to do it? They're the only ones who care and have an opinion on it. Not the people watching them do it. Them. They're the only ones allowed to have an opinion on it, as far as I'm concerned. So I think longer clear times are pointless. Here's the thing. Longer clear times are only achieved through absolute batshit insane, very, very secretive puzzle-like mechanics or gear gating. That's it. And then the length of the fight versus execution demand, which usually leads to ultimate definitely dragging on and getting you to the progression points more and more. So, no, I think the only ways to forcefully extend prog time are arbitrary and superficial and not worth it. So, no. And again, if you're not rating, I don't think you get to have an opinion on it, as a matter of fact. Hashtag Mr. Happy Monday. Hello. Hi. Would you say that crit... Man, substats again. Would you say that crit, direct hit are too powerful? No. Crit is too powerful. Direct hit shouldn't be allowed on tanks and healers, but is also essentially creating a bigger problem alongside critical. The fact that direct hit exists is a problem because it's redundant to crit, but crit itself is by far the most powerful. Like, if crit didn't exist and direct hit was our crit, it wouldn't be overpowered at all, like in isolation. It only seems overpowered because they both get, put together, and your skill can go from doing 50k to like 170k, which is absolutely ridiculous. Everyone goes crit. No, I actually, as Bard, I wanted crit and debt on a lot of my gear this time. So yeah, actually, I think a lot of people went crit debt. I think that's because the amount of direct hit available isn't high enough yet to warrant taking it over determination. Feel free to correct me on that comment section. But yeah, no, a lot of jobs I'm pretty sure want debt as their second stat right now. I know Bard did last time I checked, and that's what I'm playing. Hey, hi. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Newer player and viewer, so my vision. Why did I read vision as wisdom? Maybe my vision is flawed. How do you feel about the state of physics? Yeah, man. As I've been climbing up difficulties as a bard, I feel like they have no vision behind what I guess the archetype wants to do between damage and support, and you get something half-assed on both accounts. In terms of damage, I feel like even when I'm maintaining hits of proper proc dot management, I still feel like I'm doing less than others. Supports and how everything... I'm going to blow your mind. if you're even mildly above average as Fizz ranged in the PF and in the Duty Finder, you are sadly doing more than most other people. Like, it shouldn't be the case, like in any sort of circumstance, even if every player in the party is equally skilled, that shouldn't happen. But let me tell you, the number of times I've gone Bard or Dancer, and not Machinist, Machinist for sure, but Bard and Dancer, and done more than people on like Samurai and Black Mage. And like not in like a random like, you know, trial roulette. I'm talking about like in the PF, like weekly reclears. So in reality, I think they've repeatedly dropped the ball on Fizz range in terms of how strong the jobs are. I think Machinist should be stronger, even with Dismantle. And I feel like they could put more onus on the individual jobs. I think they could just generally bring all of the jobs that are kind of in the lower half of damage dealt, Summoner, the Fizz ranged, Red Mage, and they could bump them up. And it would be harmless to the game as a whole. You know, they balance around it, but it would be harmless to the game as a whole. I don't think it would make people play melee less. I don't think it would make people play Picto less. I think it would just make those jobs that are down there feel like they're not down there in the first place. In terms of the actual play pattern, I think they've done a pretty good job with them, especially with the improvements they made. But I will say this. In the current landscape of things, I do feel really good playing Fizz range, watching the melee struggle, which to be fair, a lot of the melees wanted the struggle. They wanted to feel like they were, they had to work extra hard to have some form of skill expression. I've seen a lot of them be really okay with that. But that being said, while they might be jealous of me just standing still and just watching them all struggle, they also are still doing more damage than me. So do they really give a shit? I don't think so. You know what I mean? It's a tough spot, but I think they could definitely do with bringing the bottom tier Fizz range in particular up a bit. And a bit is actually all it would take, but up. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hello, Mr. Happy. Hi. I want to ask how you feel about Savage as a colorblind person. I'm also colorblind as a monk main since 1.0, and DT is the first set of raids I may say this would be better as ranged DPS. I don't think that has anything to do with colorblindness. There is one thing that, for me, genuinely, I kind of just, it only sucks a little bit because I know it's there. I can avoid it. And it's not random. So it's like it's not an element I actually need to be concerned about. The point blank AoE from the second Love Me Tender in beat 1. I have to be looking for it because to me, it blends into the arena. It's the one right before she starts firing the hearts on Savage. In normal mode, it's a little bit more of a mess. But that one point blank AoE, I genuinely sometimes I don't see it. It's just not there to me. So that's really the only thing. Most of the time, they're pretty on point with it, and I rarely have any issues. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello. Hi. So 2 questions for you. Wow, it's not a lot of text for 2 questions. Do you expect any job to be reworked? Expect? Some people are out there saying Black Mage. I can already see it. Or Summoner. No, I keep thinking Machinist is going to hit the rework chopping block sooner or later. I don't think it technically needs it, but I think there's enough flaws in its gameplay design that need to be remedied through a mild rework, like a Paladin or Ninja-esque rework, that I could see it happening, I suppose. Have you noticed the Viper Swords are off-centered when stowed on the back? No. And I honestly, good thing I'll forget that you said this by the time I log back in, because I won't have to see it, because I'll forget. Hashtag Mr. Happy Monday. I will say hello this time. Don't grab a spare. Well, good, because there's been a lot of not hellos today, and you didn't want to be another one. Hi. So you ever thought a raid tier was so bad you didn't want to prog it? I see the problem is I wouldn't know that till after it's done. Like, you might argue Abyssos because of the way Abyssos went. And you said Abyssos actually right here. But no, by the time I have that opinion, it's too late. I've already done it because I do this for a living. So it's just kind of like, I'm already neck deep. So no, actually the answer is just no. Oh, that was actually there's a lot of comments, but not a lot of questions, actually. There's a lot of talk about the S-rank conversation from last week. Some Dissidia comments here. Somebody's saying Ruby Weapon isn't soloable. It's been done by a Pictomancer. I know that for a fact. Samurai could probably do it too. And that's in, like, not the raid gear that we just got. So more than likely, yeah, a bunch of DPS could do that one. Emerald and Diamond, I know for a fact, have also been done. So yeah, I'm gonna be working on those this week. I'm gonna actually get Samurai gear and see if I can do it on Samurai. You just need 25% echo before phasing into the second bit. So that's really the most important thing. But I think Tengetsu is more valuable than the Picto Shield with the 30%, the 30-second reduction. So that's what I'm thinking at the very least. I just go Tengetsu, and with Samurai, you know, I'll just blast one of the ads down, and that will probably be more than sufficient. But we'll see. I'm going to do that. Yeah, a bunch of, there's some more Dissidia comments. World first BA is so hot. Yeah, more talk. Pro positionals. Yeah, you know, I'm big on pro positional as well. S-rank talk. Stuff about tying item levels to logs. Looking forward to cool new bugs in Eden Ultimate and some new controversy. Somebody watch Top Prog. Listen, everyone's got their priorities, I suppose. Oh, and yeah, and then a comment here that's actually worth bringing up. So tying boss mechanics to HP can also result in mass wipe. So I actually have a very specific example of that. In second coil, most of the bosses had mechanics tied to HP. And almost all of them had some situation where it could cause a wipe. So most notably are 6 and 7. On turn 6, on both normal and savage, you have to cleanse a debuff that you get from the boss. And if you don't cleanse it, bees endlessly spawn. And if you don't kill the bees, then they'll final sting and kill people. Well, I'm sorry, they don't even final sting. They just sting and they just start murdering everybody, like back to back to back to back to back. And if you phase push at a time before you cleanse it, then you're stuck with it for the rest of the fight. And now just technically you can still clear, but there's just bees that are just on you this entire time. And it's just an absolute pain. And then in turn 7, this is more notable in turn 7 Savage. But in turn 7, the Cursed Voice and Cursed... the Renaud spawn timings versus your Cursed Shriek timings could become unresolvable. Now, I say that's really only a problem in Savage because in normal, everyone would just stack 4 Renauds and just constantly re-petrify them, which is why you can't do that in Savage, where you have to kill them off or they'll become unpetrifiable, and then they'll just sprint at people when they get free. But no, in turn 7 Savage, you literally have to time the phase pushes, or you get unresolvable situations where the Shriek cannot be stopped by a Renaud. And so that is a major problem with HP-based mechanics. I do think there's a middle ground where you can design a fight to lock in a pattern that has to resolve and then still have an H. So, for example, like let's say the honey situation. Let's say they made it so that if the honey went out, you cannot phase push until the next opportunity to remove it has passed. I think that would be a fair middle ground. And then same with turn 7, like they make it so that the Renaud timers are always in line with the phase push. So like if you get the phase push in such a way that would have normally like cursed you to not be able to do the Renauds, it resets the timers so that you absolutely can do the Renauds at the time they expect you to be able to do them. So there are solutions, is all I'm saying. I just don't think they're going to even go back to that. But I think there is merit in considering it to some capacity. I don't remember the exact context of what we talked about from last week, but since the comments here, I figured it was worth bringing up as a discussion. But anyway, that's going to be a wrap for this week's episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. Be sure to ask your questions in the comment section of the video below. Be sure to like and subscribe. And best of all, just enjoy the content. We got some stuff coming this week that should be fun. So hopefully you're looking forward to it. Anyway, I will see all of you in the next one. Until then, take care.